Somewhere in the Pacific there is an island that does not exist on any map, and the men who found it wished they never had. It is 1973. A helicopter carrying scientists and soldiers cuts through a wall of storm clouds that no plane has ever survived crossing. On the other side, the sky turns gold, the water turns still, and an island rises out of the mist like something that was never meant to be seen by human eyes. The mission is run by a man named Bill Ronda, who works for a secret organization called Monarch. Officially, they are here to survey the island for a government research project. Unofficially, Ronda knows something the others do not. He has spent years chasing rumors of ancient creatures buried in the corners of the earth, and he believes Skull Island is where one of them still lives. To get there safely, they bring along a tracker named James Conrad, a former British Special Forces officer who knows how to survive in places that should not exist. They also bring a photographer named Mason Weaver, who has seen enough war to know that the quiet moments right before disaster are the most dangerous of all. And leading their military escort is Preston Packard, a colonel who has just been pulled out of Vietnam, still burning with a war he was never allowed to finish. None of them know that they are about to drop bombs onto the front porch of a god. Because the moment the helicopters descend past the clouds, Ronda gives the order to release seismic charges into the ground, hoping to map what lies beneath the island. The explosions echo across the jungle like a dinner bell, and from behind a mountain, something enormous rises to answer it. He is nearly 100 feet tall. His body is covered in matted fur the color of dried blood. His eyes are old and human in a way that should not belong to a creature his size, and his hands are large enough to close around a helicopter like a closing fist. This is Kong, not a monster, not a villain, the last of his kind, and the only thing standing between the surface of Skull Island and whatever waits in the darkness below it. Kong tears through the sky, ripping the helicopters apart one by one, and within minutes what was a well-armed military expedition becomes a handful of survivors scattered across a jungle that has just declared them intruders. If this is your first time joining us here on Mr. A Stories, this is exactly the kind of story we live for. Ancient secrets, forgotten places, and the kind of fear that comes from realizing you were never at the top of the food chain to begin with. Stay with me, because the island is only getting started. Packard survives the crash with a fury that quickly turns into obsession. He does not see Kong as a force of nature to be avoided. He sees him as the enemy who killed his men, and he decides, quietly, that before this mission ends, Kong will pay for it. Conrad and Weaver survive together, along with a small group of soldiers and scientists, and they begin moving toward the far side of the island where a rescue boat is supposed to meet them in 3 days. Ronda, meanwhile, reveals the real reason he brought them here. Monarch has tracked signs of massive creatures across the globe for decades, and Skull Island sits above something ancient, something that has been sealed beneath the earth since long before human beings existed. Kong is not the danger. Kong is the guard standing at the gate. As the group moves deeper into the island, they find a village of native people known as the IWI, who have lived here for generations in careful, quiet coexistence with Kong. Among them they discover something no one expected: a man named Hank Marlowe, a World War II pilot who crashed on the island decades earlier and has been stranded there ever since, surviving because the IWI took him in, and because Kong allowed him to live. Marlowe explains what the island truly is. Long ago, Kong was not alone. His entire species once ruled here, but they were wiped out by creatures that live beneath the surface, reptilian horrors known as skullcrawlers, who claw their way up whenever the barrier between worlds grows thin. Kong is the last of his line, and he keeps the skullcrawlers buried by killing any that rise. Without him, the entire island falls into the mouths of something far worse. This single piece of information turns the whole expedition upside down. Ronda now understands that provoking Kong may have already cracked the seal keeping the worst of them contained. And true to his fear, something enormous begins stirring in the caves below. The survivors split into 2 paths. One group, led by Conrad, Weaver, Marlowe and Ronda, tries to reach the rendezvous point on foot, crossing through what Marlowe calls the Boneyard, a graveyard of Kong's ancestors, all of them killed the same way, all of them a warning of what happens when the guard falls. The other group follows Packard, who refuses to leave without dropping napalm on Kong first, determined to avenge his fallen soldiers no matter what it costs the rest of them. As the two groups struggle to reunite, the island answers Packard's aggression the only way it knows how. A skullcrawler far larger than any before it rises from beneath the earth. A creature born specifically to kill Kong once and for all. It is fast, armored, nearly invisible in the mist, and it does not fight the way Kong does. It hunts. The group crossing the boneyard is ambushed. Rhonda is killed, along with several soldiers, in one of the film's most brutal and unexpected turns, a reminder that no character, however important they seem, is safe on this island. Conrad and Weaver barely escape, dragging the survivors toward a river that may be their only way out before nightfall, when the fog thickens and the true predators of Skull Island wake up fully. Meanwhile, Kong, wounded from the earlier attack and bleeding from wounds inflicted by Packard's forces, is weaker than he has ever been. And the giant skullcrawler, sensing this, begins closing in for the kill. If you are enjoying this story so far, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because here on Mr. A Stories we bring you a brand new tale like this every single week, and trust me, the ending of this one is worth staying for. Packard, blinded by grief and fury, ambushes Kong with everything his remaining men have left, determined to finish what the bomb started. But in the middle of the attack, the true predator of the island arrives. The giant skullcrawler bursts through the jungle and turns on Packard's men without mercy, and for the first time, the soldiers realize they were never the biggest threat on this island. Kong was never their enemy. He was the only thing keeping something far worse asleep. Weakened, bleeding, and outmatched, Kong is dragged into the swamp by the creature, and it becomes clear that without help, even the last titan of Skull Island may fall. Conrad, Weaver and the surviving soldiers realize they have one chance left. If Kong dies, nothing stands between the island and the horrors buried beneath it, and nothing will stop those horrors from eventually reaching the rest of the world. So instead of running, they turn back. Using flare guns, makeshift explosives and anything they can find, the survivors distract the skullcrawler just long enough to give Kong a moment to recover. It is not human weapons that save the day, however. It is Kong himself, dragging himself out of the water one last time, roaring not in rage but in defiance, refusing to be the last of his kind to fall. What follows is one of the most brutal confrontations on the island. Kong uses the environment itself as a weapon, boat propellers, sharpened bones, the wreckage of downed helicopters, turning human tools of war into the very things that finally bring the skullcrawler down. In the final moment, Kong tears the creature apart with his bare hands, ending the threat that has haunted this island for generations, and reclaiming his place as its last and rightful guardian. Packard, having lost everything chasing a war that was never his to fight, refuses to accept defeat even now, aiming a final desperate attack at Kong. But Conrad stops him, forcing him to see what should have been obvious from the very beginning. Kong was never the monster. He was the only reason any of them survived long enough to see the ocean again. In the end, the survivors reach the extraction point and leave Skull Island behind, carrying with them film reels, samples and a warning that Monarch intends to keep buried from the public. Kong, alone once more, watches them go from the shoreline, the last titan standing guard over a secret the world is not ready to face. But this is not really the end, because in a hidden debrief long after the survivors return home, Monarch officials reveal something even more disturbing. Kong is not the only ancient creature the organization has discovered. Symbols on cave walls, footage from Skull Island, and reports from other corners of the globe all point to the same terrifying truth. Kong is not unique. He is only the first confirmed proof that titans, monsters older than human history itself, are real, and they are waking up. And that quiet, chilling reveal is exactly what sets the stage for everything that comes after. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you want more stories like this one, terrifying, mysterious, and full of twists you never see coming, make sure you hit subscribe here on Mr. A Stories, because a brand new story is coming your way very soon, and trust me, you will not want to miss it. Until next time, stay curious.